Rebrand fam, welcome back. We are without Andy today. He had to take care of family, and I mean that's something that we're always as much commitment as we have to this podcast, to this ministry, and to what God's called us to. It's not to a podcast or to ministry; it's to God and wherever God's calling us. We know that family is a priority in ministry. They are our first ministry
That's right.
as husbands, and so I was on my way here. Gerson was already here, and he said he couldn't make it. He had to help his family take care of something. So it's Gerson and I here once again, and
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah,
continue.
Andy has the recording board.
Yeah,
So
we were telling him, hey, we're talking into this week. We're like, we got to switch up chairs because Gerson and I are short and we look weird in these chairs, but Andy always looks good, and no matter what we use, and so one day maybe we'll be tall as
Yeah.
Andy. Until then, we just have to work with what we got. But we're back talking about culture, how that impacted us, and just continuing that conversation into how it formed us, context of the Word and our walk with God. It's something that I've been thinking about since we started talking about it last week or 2 weeks ago.
yeah, that was. I think it was last
last
week.
week's-
I don't know. I slept since then.
Can I? One thing, I think this is overall episode 25 for us. So this is
Correct, correct.
episode 11 of season 2. I think season 1 had 14 episodes. So this is episode 25, and that may not seem like a lot. And we don't have that many followers. But I still want to celebrate milestones.
Yeah.
I think it's part of being um, faithful in the little. It's 25 episodes. We don't have that many followers. That's okay. We'll
Hey,
still
that-
celebrate this milestone. We had 0 a year ago, and now we're at 25. So we're blessed and thankful for that.
It's amazing because we didn't know that we were gonna be here. We
Right.
didn't know how we're gonna do this. And
Right.
God's now opening up doors, different doors, and we have been saying this for the longest time. We're gonna have a permanent place one
Yeah.
of these days, and
Yeah.
it's closer and closer as we go. But until then, we still record. We still one of the biggest things was can we just share stories of redemption?
Yeah.
Can we share what God has done in our lives
Yes, sir.
and what God is doing still in our lives?
Yeah.
Because until we die and go home, we're still gonna have struggles. We're still gonna have temptations. We're still gonna have problems, issues, and that's the beauty of God continuing writing our stories.
Yeah.
So we're this is amazing. I didn't know we were gonna get here,
Right.
and here we are. A few breaks, but here we are.
Yeah, I think it was because me initially rebrand starts with a heart to serve pastors' children, sons and daughters. And I was thinking about it, like that's always something that's been on my heart, even before you and I connected about this specifically. And I would always ask God, why have you connected me with these pastors' kids over the years? And I have a relationship with them. Like, why? And I think it's part of it's for this ministry that we're doing. It was to hear what others were going through that maybe I didn't experience as a pastor's kid, but that really shed some light onto what they were experiencing and just understanding. Wow, I get why that's hard. I may not be experiencing it, but I can relate to a certain degree because, hey, I'm also in your shoes. And so it's a learning experience, but also now it's connections for some of our followers or friends that listen to us that we've developed over the years. And now we're doing a podcast each week. We didn't plan on the podcast. We just said, hey, let's get people together, share life. And I think we figured out we can connect week to week through the podcast when it's probably not feasible for us to actually meet every week. So it's fun. We're learning.
Yeah, because one of the things we used to do, and after we started this, we stopped doing it because it just got too busy. But you and I will get together for coffee
Yeah.
every other Thursday or
Yeah.
whenever it worked for our
Yeah.
schedules, and check out how we were doing,
Yeah.
how we encourage each other, and that was the thought. It's like, how can we encourage other pastors' kids, other leaders'
Yeah.
kids? And this year has been just challenging because not just leaders' kids and pastors' kids, but youth in
Yeah.
whole have been, expressing the need to be heard or to hear other stories because they feel alone.
Never heard. Yeah.
So one of the thoughts was eventually, we started with pastors' kids, leaders' kids, and how it's evolving, even though I don't believe in evolution, to how do we minister to those all of the broken youth
Yeah.
that are seeking identity, that the world is telling them you're this, you're that, but Christ is telling them, no, you're beautiful.
Yeah.
I created you. I made you in my image.
Yeah.
And yeah, this life is hard, but I will be here with you,
Yeah.
and I will be here in all the process. So we're dreaming, we're talking, we're putting information to you guys that whatever you are going through, whatever you have gone through, we love to hear your
Yeah.
stories, and that's kind of how we started. It's like just share your story, share what God is doing and what He's done, and what He's gonna do. And we had some great people here, John Granados.
Yeah.
We had Merari
Yeah.
and Andy. You and I, we shared, and one of the things, I think one of the episodes we opened it up to the whole
Right.
group, and that
Right.
was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
And there's more guests. We just
Yeah,
it's been
it's just
hard
been
to schedule.
their schedule, our schedule.
Yeah.
So we want to be faithful that at least one of us is gonna be here,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we'll probably take a break sometime here in December, family time,
Yeah.
and all that, and probably regroup in January.
Yeah.
So if you don't see us for a few Sundays here in the next month,
Yeah.
a few weeks here in the
That's
next
fine.
month, and know that we want to be faithful to our families
Yeah.
also, and then at the same time we want you to be anxious and waiting to what God's doing. But in our heart is this cultural thing. People don't understand how much we need one another,
Yeah.
and how much how we grew up and where we grew up can affect the way we do things, the way we act, the way we react
Yeah.
to things that happens in our lives. Now, I was thinking the other day when we were talking about this, how I was bitter with. See, I never had a problem. A lot of people have a problem with Anglo Americans.
Yeah. 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 Oh yes, you touched a little bit on this.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
and but I never really had a problem with a big problem with Anglos or white. Um, eh, I had a big problem growing up with African Americans.
Okay. Because
Uh,
I think last time you mentioned Mexicans because you always got
yeah,
labeled as
yeah.
a Mexican,
So
but you
yeah,
weren't.
so I didn't get along with even though I had to go through that, but little
And
it
hold
was
on,
just
this
in
was
my mind.
and that came from the sentiment towards Mexicans came from your time.
From my time crossing, and I don't know how deep I went in there, and I know I told you guys of the the stuff that happened
Right. The border to
crossing the
because
border,
I
but
mean you started in Guatemala,
starting Guatemala,
so you had to go through
had to
multiple
go
countries.
through
Mexico
Mexico,
was a big part
through
of the travel.
Mexico, and the biggest thing there was it's not just like taking a trip. It's about taking a trip without people knowing that you're taking a trip,
Yeah.
and that was a challenging part. And I did talk about some of the places that we went, like the train and some of the stuff that happened there. But my sister was 3 months old, I believe. I was 5. And one event that was that really challenging was when we got to the border of Tijuana and the United States, Mexico and the United States. My sister was dropped
Mm.
by. We had to run from
Yeah.
immigration. My sister was dropped, um, and everyone just ran over her. And I remember my mom and me and another guy. We were running. We didn't even see her.
Mm.
We passed through. People were jumping fences. Uh, so we passed through.
Was this during the day at night?
This is a night.
Okay, okay.
It's
Sorry,
dark.
just like,
It's dark. We passed through. We didn't see her. We didn't hear her cry.
wow.
And we almost made that turn. And another guy comes and says, "Hey, your daughter is back there." And so it was. This was like whoa. And I remember this like if it was yesterday. So my mom decides. So we're like, where? So we go back, and she's laying on the floor. She's not breathing. My mom's just crying, and this guy is like, we gotta go. Immigration is gonna get us. We gotta go. And my mom's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. I'm turning myself in, and tells me to go with the guy. I don't know this guy, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here. And the guy's like, we gotta go. And my mom's saying, I'm not going. And tells me again, you gotta go with him. You gotta go with him. And I said, no, I'm not going anywhere. That's one of the times that I remember as a child that I had to say, no, I'm staying with you. I'm crying. She's crying. I'm 5 years old. And
How old are you? 5?
5 years
Okay.
old. And my sister is not responding. And so the guy leaves, and then we just there crying, and we just see the light of an immigration officer, and but how they treated us was amazing. Right away, he gave CPR to my sister and called an ambulance and took us to the hospital. Uh, treat us great, and just a humanitarian way that they treated us. Um, and after that she was fine, and she survived. She's got 3 kids now. She's but Cecia.
Yeah.
And but it was a hard time.
Yeah.
We had to turn ourselves in, and my dad was already in New York, so he had to bail us out. So I remember when when I got interviewed by the immigration officer there. And see, they tell us Central Americans that if we get caught by immigration officers, that we have to say that we are Mexicans,
So they deport
because
you back to
they
Mexico?
don't send you back to
All the way
Central
back.
America, so they send you back just to Mexico.
You restart your attempt to get back in from
Yes,
Mexico,
yeah,
not
from
all the way
Mexico,
down to
not all the
Guatemala.
way, because it's thousands of money. I think back in those days, probably like $2,000-3,000
Yeah.
each. So it's that, and you don't have it. You sell everything to
Yeah.
come here,
Yeah.
and the importance of just saying you're Mexican. So my mom was frustrated. She just gave up, and she's like, "No, we're from Guatemala. My husband is in New York, and we were just trying to get to him."
Mm.
And I get interviewed separately, and they're like, "So where you from?" And I'm from Cojula, Jalisco. So it's like, what? It's like, yeah, I'm from Cojula, Jalisco. And you have to do that little, singing sign that's like, Cojula, Jalisco. Because that they have a similar accent to
Yeah.
Guatemalans.
Okay.
And the immigration officers, they were just laughing because how trained I was.
Yeah.
And then in front of my mom, they asked me, "So where you from?" It's like, "I'm from Cojula, Jalisco." And my mom
As
says,
a
"No, I already
5-year-old.
told them we're from Guatemala." "No, I'm from Cojula, Jalisco."
Mm.
And my dad had to pay, I think it's like $7,000 to bail us out. And we were able to stay because of my sister. We were able to stay in New York for 4 years.
Mm.
And but it was a new culture, challenging. My sister suffered with like asthma.
Yeah.
You couldn't say something bad because she would like not being able to breathe, and it was just hard times, and uh, people don't understand why you do what you do. But through that, we could have stayed here in the States, but 4 years came and we could have applied for a permanent status. But my two other sisters stayed in Guatemala. And that was a big challenge for
Yeah.
us. I don't know if I said this last time, but two of my sisters,
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't
You did.
afford
You
we
mentioned that.
couldn't afford to bring them, and so they stayed in Guatemala, and they suffer a lot. And my mom, it's one of those things. Parents do their best. They try their best. They think this is the best, but they're gonna make mistakes, and
Yeah.
and that's okay. That's part of humanity. But for the longest time, she would blame herself for doing that, and
Yeah.
because how much they suffered.
Yeah.
But that forced us to go back to Guatemala and lose the privilege to become
Yeah.
legal residents
Yeah.
here. As they were working, they were paying their taxes, being faithful. But so we went back to Guatemala, and it's shocking. Cultural shocks are important. I got this.
So now you're 9, going back to
So now
Guatemala.
I'm 9, and it's cultural shocking. I had a cultural shock to come to the States, and I had to adapt. So I was in school in New York, I remember, and I think I was 5.5 already, 6 years old, and right, I went to school right away, and uh, a teacher yells at me. I guess that's how she talked. I don't know. I felt threatened.
Mm-hmm.
So probably the first, second, maybe first week of school, I don't remember. But I remember exactly what I did,
Mm.
and I went to the outside, and I jumped the fence, and I went home. And this is how like low key security was back then.
Right. Right. Yeah.
uh, Not until maybe an hour or 2 hours later, they noticed I wasn't
You were
there.
gone.
And they called my parents, they called police, and they were searching everywhere for me. And later on, they all thought, well, have we checked the home? And little they know, I was watching cartoons at
home.
home, eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I got a big whooping out of
Bro, I'm hungry. You just said
yeah.
peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I'm hungry.
I know, bro.
Go ahead. Sorry.
So it's I was really afraid,
Mm.
and I ran. I remember I ran. I felt afraid, and fear makes you do dumb things at any age.
Yeah.
But it's I had to learn English, and I was a kid, so I learned it fast.
Yeah. This is
But
during the first 4 years,
in the first 4 years,
5 to 9.
yeah. So learned English, learned it fast, but we struggled a lot. Struggled a lot. Had lived one, two, three, at least 3 places I remember that we
Mm.
lived in those 4 years. Um, and yeah, 3 places. I remember that we lived in those 4 years, and it was one time that the river came out,
Mm.
and we had to go into the house with boats,
Yeah.
all of our furniture, everything, because we used to live in a basement.
Yeah.
Got wet, flooded everything. Like it covered cars
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
way to the
Yeah.
top. We had some good storms over there in New York. There was others that snow covered cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
But just the idea of a kid going through all that trauma,
Yeah.
and then now in a different country, different language, had to adapt. It wasn't easy. And right when I'm thinking I'm adapting, now I speak English. Now I'm forgetting my Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
We have to go back to
Back.
Guatemala. So that was challenging. I didn't want to go back,
Right.
but I couldn't stay.
Right. Yeah.
So that was another challenge. And I get to Guatemala, and now I'm being bullied
Mm-hmm.
by my own cousins, friends,
Yeah.
because I can't speak Spanish.
Yeah.
By friends in school, I'm sent back a year
Mm-hmm.
because I can't write and read in Spanish, and it's like I got to start all over, and that was challenging. That was a big challenge, and I got into a lot of fights,
Mm-hmm.
lots of fights. I didn't know how to fight, but I had to learn.
Yeah.
I had to learn to defend myself. I think that created, a lot of bitterness, anger,
Yeah.
uh,
Insecurity.
growing up. Yeah, just uh, as I look in my life and look back, it's like maybe that had something to
Yeah.
do with how I felt
Yeah.
growing up. And so here we are. The first week we get to Guatemala, the first week or second week, my last sister Sharon gets stolen,
Mm.
and people are selling it. In Guatemala we have these places called El Mercado. It's kind of like a flea
Yeah.
market, and people sell uh, uh, tomatoes,
Yeah.
all kinds of food
Yep.
and stuff like that. And we were playing outside, and somehow she disappeared. And this is not a movies, bro.
Mm.
This is like
Real.
happened.
Yeah.
And I'm 9 years old, and she's nowhere to be found. And so everyone runs to the mercado, and everyone is looking for her. And finally, a lady said, she knew my grandma. She says, I saw a lady over there trying to sell a little, and I
Mm.
think it's your granddaughter.
Mm.
And for sure it was, bro. They were trying to sell my sister back over there.
That's wild.
And so that's like, now we had to move
Yeah.
because my mom didn't feel secure.
Yeah.
My mom's like,
Absolutely.
no. So we went. She had to go grab, because we called the police, and she was saying it was her daughter. So my mom had to go back and look for a birth certificate, and it was you know, all that in that, like, transitioning right away.
Yeah.
So we had to move from there, go another place, and unsecure. And we couldn't last. I think we lasted 2.5 years because my dad was gonna pastor, and many things happened. But we figure out now. They figure out this. We gotta go.
Throughout this, you're young, but throughout this, are you blaming God for this? Why God? Because part of why your dad is around at first is because of he's an evangelist,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now you're moving around, all this is happening, and your dad's a pastor. So, like, do you have much recollection of if you thought about these things, if you connected these things as a now 9,
You
10,
know,
11, 12-year-old?
in New York, I was 8 years old when I in a Sunday school with Royal Rangers. So we were with Assemblies of
Yeah.
God, and I remember the day in the basement there. It was a Sunday where I accepted Jesus. I really remember that I gave my life to Him. I didn't know what that meant,
Yeah.
but I really believed that He existed.
How'd that happen? Like that
Uh,
moment.
it was an introduction. It was a teaching. That's why I don't remember if it was Royal Rangers
Yeah.
or Sunday school, but they were teaching about Jesus, how He gave His
What's
life.
Royal Rangers in Spanish?
Royal Rangers, I don't remember,
I had
bro.
it. I mean, I did in Costa
know.
Rica too, but
I did in
in
Guatemala
Spanish.
too. Los Exploradores,
Okay.
Exploradores del Rey, or
Yeah.
something like that.
Okay.
Exploradores del Rey. So I accept Jesus, but I don't know Him, but I
Do you
do
remember
believe.
who it was that presented Jesus to you?
It was a female teacher,
Okay.
and so I knew that I believed in Him. that he was real. But I not until I was 12 that we had to leave Guatemala again is when I was bitter.
Mm.
I never questioned between 8, 9, 10, 11.
But it's been growing all these years.
But when my mom had to leave, my dad wanted to start a business. He was a pastor. He was revitalizing a church that was dying, and he goes with Assemblies of God's now settling and pastoring for a couple years, and they were trying to make it, and they started a business, and uh, unfortunately, with family, his brother and his brother sold all the machines and left them in debt and just broke.
Yeah.
And they worked, and they couldn't pay the person that helped them and went into business. So that for them was another stressor, and it was one of the causes that we had to come back to
Okay.
the States
Okay.
after all this chaos, and now we're broke and we can't do this, and
Yeah.
it was and I was going through being a teenager, 12 years old, and I want to be, a little bit independent, and I'm a little rebel, So I'm a pastor's kid, probably one of the blackest of the blackest sheeps. I didn't have any white spots, and not a lot of people wanted their kids to hang out with me
Mm.
at the church because I was trouble. Um, and I guess without knowing it, maybe some of all these things are building inside of me, and
Yeah.
that's why I'm trouble.
Yeah.
So I'm always on my guard. I'm always trying to defend myself. Um, and now my mom has to leave,
Yeah.
but she applied for a visa and she gets a visa. So now she don't come the way we did. She comes
Yeah. Yeah. Legally.
in a plane
Yeah.
in 3-4 hours rather than 2 weeks. And she gets to LA and she's gonna work for a few months and try to pay this debt. And things are not easy.
Right.
And she can't work as much. There's not much work in LA, not like New York. And
Yeah.
and so now my dad says, "Well, I'm gonna go help you." And my dad came
How
in
long was your mom in
6 months,
before your dad gets her? Okay.
and my dad gets there 3 or 6 months, something like that. My dad gets there. He has to come again, undocumented, and across. But he, being an evangelist, knows a pastor that knows a pastor, and he just went from right to right. My dad hardly ever suffered,
Mm.
knew what to do or where to go,
Yeah.
and he had a evangelist visa, so through Mexico he was fine.
Okay.
So he could go through all Central America and Mexico fine, and all he had to do is just jump the border here. So for him was easy, and he gets here, and I'm struggling with all these things, and in Guatemala now with all this pain,
Yeah.
and they left us with my grandmother on my dad's side, who we never hung out with.
Mm.
We didn't know her. We knew her one or two
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
times, but
I get you.
it's for us. She wasn't. Not until I was older that I did a lot of fellowship with her.
Yeah.
But as a youth, I never interacted, and they leave us with this stranger.
Yeah.
Now me and my 4 sisters. So now I am 12 years old, and I'm about to be 12, and now I'm taking care of all my sisters, and uh, I'm not an adult, and they send money, and I start drinking at that age.
Mm.
I start smoking, and I'm just running wild at 12 years old.
Because we live in 2023, smoking. What do you? Are we smoking like cigarettes or
So,
smoking weed?
cigarettes.
Okay. Okay.
So
All right.
cigarettes, but
2023. That can mean anything.
yeah. I smoke weed, but that was later. But I start smoking cigarettes,
Yeah.
and start drinking at age 12. And
Is the group of friends you're around, are they doing it too?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So sometimes the
Very
wrong
much
crowds, but
influenced
yeah. But I think
by your friends.
no, I
You
think
may have. You were the
I
influence.
probably
You were the
influenced them.
your friend. Oh man.
um, but many of these things,
How do you have access to this at 12? How are you getting these things?
you can in Central America you can get
You
access to
just.
it.
I'm just saying. You're just paying people and they're just giving it to you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I just
yeah.
want to.
And so that's what's happening. And in between there, at age 10, I go through a rough time where older. Uh, I'm 10 years old, 22 years old, and I get exposed to sexual relationships. So we can now in this time and era, and we think, and it is true. I just didn't see it that way. I was being molested
Yeah.
and being sexually abused,
Yeah.
even though I was going through a lot of that stuff, and I didn't see it bad.
Yeah.
All that messed me up. Exposed to sexual relationships at a very early
Yeah.
age, it messed me up, and so I
And
was going through all of this, and now
this
my
is around
parents have
10. You said.
yeah. So but
Do
all
you
that
think
keeps on
why
adding.
you start going to alcohol at the age of 12?
12,
Like, is
12.
the alcohol a way to?
No. I
It's
think
just another addiction, another
yeah,
thing to.
relationships broken. I had a girlfriend, I think, and my parents leave. Now we're stayed with no one. I don't want to go to church. I don't have to go to church because my parents are not there. So I think it didn't last like 2 or 3 months that someone told my dad, and wrote him a letter and said, and they told him, I said, if you don't come for him, he'll be lost. And I thank God for that person
Yeah.
that was courageous enough
Yeah.
to tell someone he needs help. A lot of times we see young people doing stuff, and because we don't want to judge, instead of going and embracing them, at the same time, I like it that he told my dad, and and but I wish there would have been someone there to walk with me,
Mm-hmm.
to take me to coffee, to invest in me, but there was no one. The most of the people that was there was to judge me and say, "Oh, that's the pastor's son. Oh, that's the pastor's son." Rather than, and then just one courageous one didn't talk to me, didn't mentor me, didn't rescue me, but said, "Send a letter to my dad. If you don't come here, you're gonna find him dead, or you won't find him."
So I wanted to stop there, and you've already touched on it. But yes, most times it's just let's talk about that person, let's criticize that person, but not actually help. Yeah, and that's not just the world; that's the church. But I, along with you, I am thankful for that person that wrote a letter, spent time writing a letter, figured out how to get it to your dad, sent it to you.
He was one of the members of the church, and I'm really thankful that it saved my life. Saved my life. But young people are going through stuff, and we're not there for them. This is why we do what we do, and I think I'll look back and all of those examples or times that I was alone, that I shouldn't have been alone.
Mm.
I say this is where we need to be with young people.
Yeah.
This is why we need to make room for them. We need to make spaces. There's many stories that we're gonna be able to talk. I think I'm gonna take this cultural thing for like a few months, because all of the stuff that happens in our lives sometimes determine of who we end up, and it can be changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if we don't deal with them uh, at a very late age, and I thank God for mentors in my life, but it took me being 24 years old.
Yeah.
But in between them, I can't really point out maybe one youth pastor.
Mm.
She was there, but you know because she was a female, she wasn't really there,
Yeah.
because but she was very caring for the youth, but because she was a female, she couldn't be there.
Sure. Sure.
This is why we do this with our wives,
Yeah.
because the female minister to the females and the guys minister to
Yeah.
the guys.
Yeah.
But it's like most of the adults, we forget that they were teenagers before.
You said it affects years and years to come. I was just talking to someone yesterday, and they were talking about how when they were younger, they literally were like, as a young girl, I don't know how old, they were running away from someone that was trying to sexually abuse them, like running and hiding. I don't know what, but that, it makes them think twice about if something happens in their house and they need to get it fixed, calling a repairman. They think twice about it because they're worried about what if something happens? What if that repairman robs me? What if that repairman tries to abuse me? So we're talking about a grown person, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 years later. I don't really know age and when this all happened, but something that happened as a child now affects this person in today's day about something that most people are like, oh, yeah, my furnace isn't working. Let me call 1-800 and fix my furnace, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
They come out, they do it, right? This person's like, no, I can only someone that I know. And if that person that they know, it's going to take them 4 days to get there, then they'll wait 4 days without a furnace or without AC, what it is, because that concern, that worry of what if that person that comes does try to do something to me, right? It's crazy. And I don't say crazy to belittle it or to make light of it. Like,
No, it's
they're
a fear
irrational.
that they walk with.
It's real.
Yeah,
It's real. And so that formation and those early years of life has really started making me think of like my children even more. Right now, as they're 4 and 2, these first 10 years of one thing that we learned at one of the mental health conferences that we went together, the one for Indiana.
Yeah.
One of the doctors there was talking about how children are going through puberty earlier on in life, but their brain is not maturing yet. It's not mature enough yet. And I'm no expert in this. This is what I caught, and I had questions for her, but she left early. No, I left early. That's the day I had to leave to go help my mom. So Lauren and I ended up leaving early, but I wanted to ask her, what are children mature or going through puberty earlier now? And, what was before and teenage years, now it's 8, 9, 10 for girls, and I think boys are can be a couple years later in going through puberty. But one of the things that she was saying is saying they're going through puberty, but the brain is not mature enough to understand, is this a real threat or is it not? Because once you mature, you're able to analyze, okay, that's not a real threat. I don't have to freak out about this. I don't have to stress about it. I don't have to feel a certain way, a negative way about this. It's okay.
Yeah.
Or the opposite is, this is a problem, but I'm not mature enough. And I think, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So what happens is they're going through puberty. They start heading into challenges that their brain is not ready to be able to analyze.
Yeah.
Good, bad, danger, not danger. And so there's trauma that's being caused by that. And it's really had me thinking of my children, like these next 10 years for them. My kids are 10 to 14. And my whole life, I there's value in me as a parent. But right now, there's so many things that they don't know yet that I have to be there for them. And sometimes it makes me reconsider, man, or it makes me think, should I walk away from some of the things that I'm doing right now just so I can be even more focused on my children? And ultimately, this is a prayer to God. God, how do I do this? This morning, Luca, apparently walked into a room around 7 in the morning. I had no idea he did. Lauren half noticed and just fell back asleep. Turned out we asked him later. He's like, yeah, I showed up into your room. You guys both were sleeping. You didn't respond. So I just went back into my bed and fell asleep. So thankfully he went back to sleep, because usually that kid, once he wakes up, he does a little devotional on our phone. So he either asks because he wants to eat cereal or he wants to do his devotional. And he can be half asleep, but he will not give up. He'll be like, Papa, Mama, quiero hacer mi tío. Quiero hacer mi tío. As he's like half asleep, I'm like, son, just fall asleep. You're still tired. No,
Yeah.
Papa, mi tío. So thankfully he let us sleep this morning, but it's he went back to bed. I got up a little bit after, and I was just praying, and I was, God, please help me. I was like, what do I pray for? Like, God, I don't want to just sit here and pray about things that are material. As like I just had that car accident, I'm thinking, no, I don't have a car. How are we going? Like, God will take care of that. I'll figure that out. But what do I pray for right now? What's more of value? And that was something I was, and it's ultimately, is God. Do I need to let go of things
Yeah.
to focus on my family? And if not, and I can still focus on my family and do these things. Amen. I'm going to follow you. But it's really just those years are very important in the formation of the rest of their life. Like, these years molded you a certain way that has had to be remolded in painful ways. It's taken time, and you're still having to be remolded.
No, yeah, and I'm still a mess. So
Right? I mean, you're not a mess, but
so
it's formed you in a certain
it's
way.
and you don't see it until you start looking back. I mean, you really don't pay attention. I mean,
As a child, no.
we grew up
And as parents, I think we
yeah,
might
well,
notice it,
he'll
but we
survive.
don't realize.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, why is he scared of a clown?
Yeah, yeah,
Example. Why? Hey,
Yeah.
baby, you don't need to be.
yeah.
But for the rest of your life, now they're scared of clowns because something they experienced as a 6-year-old. They know it's irrational, maybe as a 30-year-old, but they're still scared of that based on something. And so they form, those years are very important.
And here's the other thing, and we jump from culture and mental health, which is good because it's a challenge, because our bodies are we're physical and spiritual, and depends on which culture or where you were born or how you're grown, you grow up. It determines what kind of issues you have here for the longest time in your life. For when we talked about pornography and sexual sin,
Yeah.
I can go back to, man, yeah, I was exposed to this.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have been exposed,
Mm-hmm.
and it caused a big issue on me.
Yeah.
When you talk about going to struggles through Mexico, and how I was bitter with people, it caused issues with me,
Yeah.
and even on my second time coming to the States, like I said, I never had um, white and Hispanic racism on me,
Yeah.
but I had black and Hispanic racism.
Yeah.
On the second time when we moved from the States, from Guatemala to the States. So when I was 12, my dad went and picked us all up, and that was it. I had to come, so we all came, and now it's another shock that we're gonna have to go through. But we don't think of those things.
Where'd you go this time?
So now this time we don't go to New York, we go to LA.
West
So
Coast.
yeah. So we're we had to cross through Mexico again, and this time was different through Mexico, but
Easier,
it was easier.
so to speak.
Easier because my
In
dad had
comparison.
connections. So my dad has connections, but we all got sick in Mexico, so we had to spend 2 or 3 weeks in Mexico, or the border of Mexico and Guatemala.
Mm-hmm.
But my dad had connections, had friends that gave us rights from one place to another. And when we came to the border of the United States and Mexico, that was when the challenge was, again, I was 12 there. I was still 12. So all of this was happening when I was still 12. Uh, I was in Guatemala when I was 12, and I was in the States when I was
Mhm.
12. So my dad and two of my sisters crossed the border. And we were going to cross with another family. And they were going to cross us because they got kids that are similar age. And we crossed with this family, and it didn't go the way it should have gone. And now we're detained.
Mm.
And my dad's already in San Isidro. And we are in Tijuana, me and two of my younger sisters. So now my sister, who's a U.S. citizen,
Mm.
had to cross illegally
Mm.
through the border rather than they should have flew her
Yeah.
from Guatemala. But she came illegally, even though she was born in New York.
Mm.
So it's all those things, and they never thought about that. But now I'm stuck in Tijuana with two of my younger sisters, with a bunch of strangers, and my dad's in San Isidro. My mom is in L.A. And it was I had to play big brother,
Mhm.
and but it was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary because you don't know.
Mhm.
You don't know people, and I'm taken from one house to another house to another house until midnight comes that we can cross the border.
Yeah.
And now I'm crossing and dragging both of my sisters with me through I think it's like a 2-3 hour run,
Yeah.
and just a lot of experiences. That's like, wow. I think I could write a movie uh, with all the horrible stuff that we went through. But once again, we're united, and God protected us. Even here's the thing: even when we don't plan right, God in His mercy, even if we do things sometimes against His will, God in His mercy allows us. This is why I tell people we are not to um, criticize people for what they go through or how they go through stuff, because we don't know their story. We don't know reasons. We don't know why. We don't know motives. We know nothing.
Yeah.
We're not in their shoes. But Christians, we're so good at criticizing other people because they come undocumented or documented. Even Latinos,
Yeah.
we criticize people that come undocumented. They came with visa. That's great. God provided for you to come the right way. No problem. People do what they have to do. And God in His mercy, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying we become hypocrite if we say we have, whoever it's doesn't have sin, then throw your
Mhm.
first stone.
Yeah.
Because we all sin somehow,
Yeah.
even just by judging someone else. So uh, every story is different. Every motive, every reason why they come to America, and that's kind of like why I felt in my heart uh, I'm gonna write. Uh, I'm writing my story, and that's why I wanted it to talk about cultural issues and uh, Americans. They suffer when they came here first. Some of them were wealthy. Others came as slaves. Others came as visitors. Other hitch rides on boats and ships, and people got here. Some other people were brought here,
Mhm.
uh, but we're all here, and we're all made in the image of God.
Yeah.
And regardless of how we get to a place, so the places doesn't make us, you know, who we are.
Sure.
But it's sad that we get to, even as Latinos, we say, well, uh, you know, yeah, I did it the right way, so why are you doing it the wrong way? It's like, you had the privilege. That's great.
Yeah.
Um, some people can't. Some people don't. Some people are not smart like you are. Some people are not wealthy like you are.
True.
Some people have no blessing like you have. Other people make mistakes. Maybe you haven't made a mistake. Maybe you're perfect. I'm being how do you say that? Sarcastic now. But that's, it's like we're all going through a process,
Yeah.
and every process affects us,
Yeah.
how we do stuff. And it's the importance also to be careful and not to privilege our kids too much. So there's a balance, because then kids who are privileged, they really act like they're privileged. And I tell my kids, don't we gotta take care of our kids, but don't put them in a bubble,
Right.
because when real life comes,
Right.
so I was exposed to too much evil. But there's struggles in life, and I think those struggles made me stronger.